Right. So today I'm going to talk about what we call the Melakarta scheme in Carnatic music. This is the basis or the framework on which our music system is built. Uh, it's going to be in two parts. So today I'm going to do part one, and hopefully down the line I'll be able to do part two. Okay. So first I'm going to share. Kala has already put this up in uh, I think in the uh, Google this one Drive, and this is basically Kala did a this one of the comparison of the three systems of music in terms of the notes and their nomenclature, and she did it in a vertical format, and I've just transformed the same thing into a horizontal format. It starts with the Carnatic scale, and then we have the Hindustani scale, and then we have the Western scale. I must straight away confess first that I put this up for completeness. To be honest, I've still not been able to get my head around fully the Western scale. I only, in fact, given the solfaing notation there, but I have not been able to get my head around fully how it works. So I will not talk much about that. I just briefly touch on the nomenclatures that we use in Carnatic and Hindustani. And I'm not sure whether we shared the names that we have for the notes. Now that's it's it's just that we have these names, and so I thought it's important, at least for sake of completeness, that we should share these names. In Carnatic music, the sa we have talked sa re gama, but we haven't given it the name that it's given normally in theory, which is it's called shadjam, and then you have shuddha rishabham, then you have chatusruti rishabham, and then you have shatshruti rishabham. Now, overlapping chatusruti rishabham is Suddha Gandharam. Overlapping Shatshruti Rishabham is Sadharana Gandharam. And then you have Antara Gandharam, which is independent, standalone note. And then you have two Madhyamas, what we call Shuddha Madhyamam and Prati Madhyamam. And then we have what is normally a constant note in Carnatic music and in Hindustani music. The sa and the pa are constant notes. I mean, they have to be, they don't get changed. So you have pa, which is just a single note, constant. It has to be kept that way. Then you have Shuddha Devatam, Chatushruti Devatam, and Shatshruti Devatam. And again, overlapping that would be Shuddha Nishadam, Kaisiki Nishadam, and Kakali Nishadam. That's how it's called. And then the higher octave sa. This is the Carnatic system. As you can see, there are 12 notes, but there is an overlap. And the overlap results in there being 16 notes. The overlap results in there being a total of 16 notes. Okay, that's the way it is, and you can see that's how it is. Hindustani music, on the other hand, is a lot simpler when it comes to the way the notes are laid out and named. You just have Shajja followed by a Komal Rishab, and then you have Shuddh Rishab. You have a Komal Gandhar and a Shuddh Gandhar. You have what we call as the Shuddh Madhyam and the Tibra Madhyam. That's how it's called, Tibra Madhyam. And then you have the Pancham, which is constant. And we have the Komal Devat, the Shuddha Devat, and then you have the Komal Nishad and the Shuddh Nishad and the Sa. I'm deliberately going to not talk about Western music because I think my knowledge is not good enough for me to talk about it yet. I'm just trying to get my head around it. But it's just that there again, there is overlap, as you can see. There is overlap. And but pretty much all these systems are included in the 12 notes. So despite the overlaps, the nomenclatures being different, we can pretty much say now that at least as far as these three systems of music are concerned, they are got the same 12 notes. They use the same 12 notes. Right. Having said this as an introduction to the three systems, I'm now going to go jump right into the Carnatic system. Right. And I'm going to take out the clutter and simply use the stuff that we are all now familiar with. There is another nomenclature here, which I don't want to confuse you with. I'll probably introduce it in the next class, in the next session. So we have sa, we have re1, re2, re3, overlapping R2 and R3, re1 and re3 is G1 and G2. Then you have standalone G3. Then you have M1 and M2, Madhyama, Ma1 and Ma2. You have Pa. Then you have Dha1 and Dha2 and Dha3. Overlapping that you have Ni1, Ni2, and Ni3 and the Sa. This is the Carnatic scale. Now, uh, the I must tell you first that it is not that the theory part of these, what I'm going to talk about now, came first and the ragas and the music came later. The ragas and the music were already there. I mean, the various ragas, the various combinations of notes, etc., were already there in various forms, in various, and each with a different, chronology and a different history and a different origin. But putting it all together and giving it structure is what was done. And this was done, this has been probably continuing from the past, but it gave the form in which we know it today. It took in the middle of the 17th century. Middle of the 17th century. We'll cover that as we go along. That's when this happened. Right. Now, what happened? To understand what happened, first I'm going to talk about the mechanics of what happened, and then we'll go into who did it and all that. Yeah. Right. Before we go into the uh, sharing of how this system was, how this matrix was developed, let us go to the rules of the game. What are the rules of the game? One of the first rule is that now we got a Melakarta Raga. Melakarta Raga is a parent scale. So each parent Melakarta Raga has 7 notes and only 7, which means it has to have 7 notes. It can't have less than 7 notes. It can't have more than 7 notes either. So it's 7 notes and only 7, right? Sa, as I kept mentioning in the beginning, Sa and Pa are constant and cannot be dropped. Every raga has to have a Sa and the Pa. Second, the third point is that in any scale, any one scale, we cannot, and this we are talking here about the Melakarta Raga. We are not talking here about all ragas. In the Melakarta Raga system, both mas cannot be used in the same raga. You have, that means M1, Ma1 and Ma2 are mutually exclusive. So if we use Ma1, we can't use Ma2. If we use Ma2, we cannot use Ma1. Right. The other rule is the notes have to always be in ascending order while going up the scale and in descending order while coming down the scale. That means we can't do a little bit of a traversing up and then come down and then go up again. That's not permitted. You go up, you keep going up. You come down, you keep coming down. Right. The ascending and the descending notes have to be identical, which means that if I play the first re on the ascent, then when I come back, again I have to play only the first re. I can't play another re. This is the rule of this game as far as Melakarta is concerned, mind you. This is not the rule of raga playing. This is the rule for Melakarta raga. So if I use the third ga in the ascent, I have to use the third ga in the descent. Right. This is the important rule which you will figure out. If you choose a note, I should have been choose, sorry, it's command as chose. If you choose a note which has a position common to another, then it takes the first name, not the second. For instance, if I were to go back, sorry, if I were to go back to this, sorry, this is the earlier one. Sorry, I think.
Use your keyboard and use the up arrow.
Yeah, I'm not on that. Yeah. Right. Sorry, again it's, yeah. So if I were to, for instance, if I were to do R2, I can't, if I choose, say, this position, unfortunately, I can't move my this one here, but let's look at this. If you choose the R2 position, and after that, uh, 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 I can't call it G, if I can't use R1 and R2 together because we can't use the same note. But if I use exclusively, if I use the R2 note, I've got to call it G1 if I'm going to if I'm going to use R3 after that. So you meaning to say that each note is exclusive. You can't use R1 and R2 or R1 and R3. Okay, if you use R1, we have to use G1 or G2 or G3. If you use R2, you can use either G2 or G3, right? So the notes cannot come, the same note cannot be repeated, right? I hope that's clear. Please interrupt me here because this is a little important.
Yes, this is very clear for me.
Yeah. Okay. Right. So it takes the first name and not the second. Right. Meaning you can't use both the name. You can't use alternate. You have to be careful about what name you use. With these rules, let's try and construct the matrix. Right. And I'm going to start by first again listing out whatever I listed then in the beginning, which is Sa, R1, R2, R3, G1, G2, G3, M1, M2, Pa, then we have Dha, Dha1, Dha2, Dha3, and so on. Now, for the sake of convenience, what I have done is I am going to split this entire exercise into two parts. Part 1 is up to Pa. So up to Pa, we are going to see what, we're going to select one scale. I could have selected at random, but I deliberately chose the scale of what we call as the set. A set is called Chakra 5. Here Chakra means set. From the fifth set, I have chosen this scale deliberately because this corresponds to the major scale. Right? R2, G3, and M1, Ma 1. So I told you, right? If you choose Ma 1, you can't choose Ma 2. So therefore, we've got R2, which is, just to demonstrate, we got R2. So we got this is everybody knows the scale. So up to here, everybody knows that, and we also know what will follow after this. If we were to play the major scale, or if we were to play the most common scale in this raga in Carnatic music, which is Shankarabharanam. So if you were to play Shankarabharanam, you would have played. Right. But this is where I need to halt a little and take you through a little bit of theory on how we construct 6 ragas. We can construct 6 ragas using the Sa Re Ga Ma Pa of Shankarabharanam or the major scale. We use Sa Re Ga Ma Pa, and then we can say we start with, so you have Ni 1. This, what I did here was I played Dha 1 and Ni 1. I'm now going to stop the Sarigama and play, only demonstrate Padanisa. This is one raga. The next raga would be, what I have done now is I've kept the Da constant and I have changed the Ni to the next Ni. Then the third one. Right? So skipping the Da constant, I could play 3 Nis and therefore I could get 3 ragas. Same Sarigama. One. So keeping the Dha constant and changing the Ni, I've got 3 ragas. Now I change the Dha. And naturally, once I've changed the Dha to the second Dha, I can't go back to the first Ni now. So I can't go back to the first Dha. So now I have to play, and I only have and I can't play the same dha as ni again because it's already taken the dha position, the first position that comes. And then, therefore, I have to now play. So I have played choosing the second ni, and then choosing the third ni. This is our familiar Shankarabharanam or major scale. So therefore, I have played now two more ragas changing the dha and using the two remaining knees. Sorry. Then right. Now that leaves us with one last dha to play. Which gives us a sixth raga of this particular set or chakra as it is called. It is the fifth chakra. There are names to it. We're not going to get into the names. So now what I have demonstrated right now is that keeping the same sarigama, but merely changing the padanisa, we can get six ragas. We can get six ragas. One raga, second raga, third raga. Sorry, that second one. Sorry. Third raga, then fourth, fifth, sixth. So six ragas we could get using. It's not very difficult to say now that we could do exactly the same thing with the first half. We actually chose Shankarabharanam, but we could have done we could have started like this. Or the next one. And lastly, so you see, just with using one ma and keeping the pa constant and the sa constant, we have got six, and we have got another. There are six variations for each of those six, which means we have a total of 36. Right? So each set has six ragas, which are also called melas. Actually, that's another name that we have, mela, because that is how it's called Melakarta. That is the parent ragas, parent scales. There are six sets with ma 1. Now exactly the same thing will happen when you change the ma to ma 2. Right? So you have six with ma 1, so you make 6 into 6, 36 ragas. There are six sets with ma 2, thus making 6 into 6, another 36 ragas. Therefore, in total, there are 72 ragas. The important thing about this scheme is it is a mathematically perfect scheme, because with the constraints that I have mentioned, the constraints that I told you about, going up and going down, 7 notes up and same 7 notes down, using the notes in a chronological order, and not using the same nomenclature twice, all that. If you do that, there can be no more and no less than 72 ragas. This is a very important point. There can be no more and no less than 72 ragas. So these seven, and therefore this is a great discovery of the person who conceived this scheme. He said nobody can improve this. This can't be improved because it's perfect mathematically. And therefore these ragas are called the Melakarta or parent ragas, because all other ragas in the Carnatic system, and for that matter even in the Hindustani system, which will come to this one, can be derived from this. This is a summary of the Melakarta scheme. I'll pause here and escape and ask whether anybody has any questions. I'm getting gibberish. Sorry. Yeah, Yeah, can you hear me?
Yes.
Yes.
Yeah.
And I do not have any questions because you explained it so nicely. It just made sense, and that your chart was amazing. So thank you.
Okay, right. So if we are clear about this, then I'm going to just do maybe a couple of more points, and then I should be done. I'm having some problem in navigating, so excuse me. Share screen.
You're already sharing your application.
I'm already sharing.
Well,
Sorry.
now you stopped it. So,
I know I'm doing.
okay.
Right.
What are you trying to share?
My this one is not working so well.
Okay, just double click it. Yeah, there you go. Yeah, you're already there. Okay.
Right. So So we've got that right. Now about the nomenclature and a little bit of history, which I deliberately didn't share in the beginning. The person who first conceived this scheme is a person by name Venkata Makhi. Venkata Makhi or Venkata Makhin. He lived in the mid part of the 17th century, and he is supposed to have lived in what we today call Karnataka state. It's around in that state he's supposed to have lived. I won't go into this, but each Melakarta raga has a name. Like we have Shankarabharanam, which for purpose of mnemonics is actually called Dhira Shankarabharanam. That is for a certain mnemonic system by which we can actually work out the number of the raga using the first two syllables. So it's called Dhira Shankarabharanam. So there are similar names: Mecha Kalyani, Dhira Shankarabharanam, Hanumatodi, and so and there are all 72 names. And most people who are reasonably familiar with Carnatic music get these names by rote. I think even Kala has a fair idea about the names. At least he used to. Now, there are two naming systems that we have. One naming system attributed to Venkatamakhi, but not very clear whether this Venkatamakhi did it or not. But let's leave that controversy out. It's a different subject. But the two naming system, one naming system is called the Kanakambari Ratnambari scheme, and the other is called the Kanakangi Ratnangi scheme. Karthik, in case I've got anything wrong, interrupt me, okay? So the first naming system is called the Kanakambari Ratnambari scheme, and it is attributed to Venkatamakhi. And the second is called Kanakangi Ratnangi scheme and attributed to Govindacharya. I want to say here something which is a common misnomer which a lot of us do, and including our own school, some of us we do this actually quite often when we talk casually. We call the first scheme often mistakenly as Asampurna or incomplete scheme. I have an objection to this use of Asampurna or incomplete, because Asampurna gives the uh, gives the feeling that it's incomplete. Somehow it is not complete, and the second scheme is more complete. Now that is a misnomer, because that is in reality it is not so. It is not that the earlier scheme of Kanakambari Ratnambari is Asampurna. Only it is actually intelligently formulated to make each vela musical and avoid discordant notes. We're going to have a little bit of discussion about discordant notes. So and I will conclude that discussion with a very small, exhibition of very small first line of a song in my own amateurish way. So the vocals of the world will please excuse me. So I want to say here that the scheme, which is the Kanakambari Ratnambari scheme, is not Asampurna, but it is intelligently formulated to make each Mela raga musical and avoid discordant notes. Right. So what is this discordant note we're talking about? This discordant note comes from what they're called in the theory and the technical name for it in Carnatic music. They are called Vivadi Melas. What is the Vivadi Mela? The Vivadi Mela is one in which the first tree and the first ga. It's first chakra, as we call the very first chakra. We are using actually the first tree and the first ga, which means you're using kind of part of the chromatic scale. If you did all the chromatic notes together, it would certainly sound unmusical. But even if you did part of it together, it sounds a little unmusical. And the very first raga actually is this. It's called Kanakambari or Kanakangi. And to the untrained ear and as well as to the trained ear, this does not sound musical. This does not sound musical. We will come to how to make it musical a little later. But this is called Vivadi. So now this first chakra is Vivadi. Naturally, the mirror image of this with the Pratimadhyama also has to be Vivadi, which means with the second Ma. So therefore, you have two chakras which are fully Vivadi. Right. Then we go to the last chakra, the sixth chakra, and the 12th chakra. How does that go? That goes like this. There you're going to be playing the third Re and the third Ga. In this one, Sarigama, and the Padanisa would be the forget the Padanisa. Let's look at the Sarigama alone. That is discordant note. Also, so these are the two chakras or the two sets where you have discordance in the fact that you're using R3 and Arga. Meaning we are using Raga. It is Re. Three of third note of Re and the third note of Ga. Right. So there we have a total of 24, 6 into 4, 24 ragas which have Vivadi swaras or discordant notes. In addition to this, in every single set, you also have the first raga and the last raga as discordant because the Padanisa, part of it makes them discordant. Or, so you have discordance. And this would be there in every chakra. That means in the remaining 8 chakras, you will have 16 ragas which have got discordant notes. Thus, there are a total of 40 Vivadi ragas. The beauty of Carnatic music ultimately comes from how the composers and those who actually played with these ragas made even these Vivadi ragas into beautiful ragas. And this is a separate subject by itself, and I'm hoping that somebody like Gokul will probably do a small demonstration on this sometime later. But there are many ways in which the actual playing of the raga by which the unmusical effect of the Vivadi notes can be avoided. There are many ways, and I am not an expert to talk on this subject even, leave alone try and demonstrate it. But I am going to make bold to demonstrate just one composition of Dikshita, Muthuswami Dikshita, with all humility, because I am, like I said in the beginning itself, I am not a veena player of any standard. So, but it's a slightly note based, so I think I can manage. So, what does Dikshita do? He uses Kanakambari, which means he uses all the notes of Kanakambari. However, he does not use the notes in such a way as to give an unmusical effect. And the beauty about, and Karthik will certainly appreciate this, the greatness of Dikshita lies in the fact that he does this in the first line of his composition. You don't have to wait for the second line or the third line or the fourth line. In just the first line of the composition, he is giving you the full scale, but he is giving it to you musically. How does he do it? The song goes like this. What have we done here? We have played everything. ma pa ma ga ga re re sa sa ni pa da sa. All the notes that should come in Kanakambari have come here, but they have not come in the strict order. In fact, in the beginning, when you go to Aharo, you are using only Sari Ma. So what has happened here is, it is not Asampurna. It is not Asampurna because every single note has come. It is not Krama Sampurna. Krama Sampurna means not in order. Not in order, but cleverly done to give a musical effect so that the listener is left with a feeling of aesthetic joy and pleasure, right? So this little demonstration of Kanakambari, please excuse me in case I have made any mistakes there, and Gokul will probably play it much better the next time around. With that, I am completing my little presentation.
I would say you stop. So go ahead and
I
stop
do have a
streaming so that
question.
you can see everyone's videos
I'm
again.
going to do that.
Yeah, perfect. And then we can all ask questions.
Yes.
Okay, so everyone else can close the stream and we'll probably be just talking at this point. Very nice job. That was very informative, even for me. I know the Melakarta scale, but I didn't know all the history. The math is also really cool, so that was very cool. Very nice job, Tiger Mouth.
Thank you very much.
Yeah, it cannot be made simpler than this. It's a very difficult subject actually to talk about, but you have made it really simple. So
that too within a very short time frame.
yeah. If can I just demonstrate, just to extend what Bashim has told about Kanakangi, he told, right?
Yes.
Kanakambari.
Correct.
Yeah. So if you take, for example, the last ragam of the first 36, Chalanatai, the 36th raham with Shuddha Madhyam. Are you able to hear?
Yes,
Yeah,
yes,
yeah.
everyone can hear you. Yep.
Yeah.
You want me to demonstrate that just for the sake of everybody? Is this fun?
You do that. You do then. Let's again take Dikshitar's example.
I played the notes flat, but
Yeah.
Karthik will demonstrate how he makes it beautiful.
Yeah, you see, for example, he has composed, I mean, he calls it Natai. Okay, this Chalanatai actually in Dikshitar Paddhati, we simply call it Natai only. Okay, and we sometimes people will call it a Janya Raga. Janya Raga means that which originated from the parent scale. Okay. That is, I think during my last talk also I talked about two kinds of wave. The Melakarta ragas are called Janaka ragas. I mean that which is the parent, and the Janya raga is the child raga, you can say, that which originates from the parent. So, for example, what he was saying, the Asampurna Paddhati. Actually, the Asampurna Paddhati, it is not the incompleteness, that in that sense it is not used. Asampurna Paddhati, it is used in the sense that either in the Arohana or in the Avarohana, that is in the ascending or the descending, I mean, all the notes may not come, all the 7 notes may not come. So that is why it is called the Asampurna Paddhati. That is in the ascending or the descending, all the notes may not come. Not from the point of view of incompleteness of the raga. So that is how I think it is to be understood. So for example, if you take the composition, Mahaganapati Manasa, which is in the raga Natte, that is the 36th Melakarta. Niza dha niza ba dha niza regama pama gama pama reza. It doesn't say pama garisa, pama risa. Nisa da nisa ba da nisa re ga ma pa ma ga ma pa ma re za re ga ma pa da nisa nisa re re za za nisa re ga ma re za ni za ni pa ma ga ma re za. I sang what is called the Chittaswaram for the song. Nisa da nisa ba da nisa re ga ma pa ma re za re ga ma pa da nisa. So he uses re ga ma pa da nisa. Nisa re re za za ni da re ga ma re za ni sa ni pa ma ga ma re za. Mahaganapatim manasa Smarami. So that is how he makes it. Even that vivadi, the discord with even with the discordant notes, the raga sounds so musical. That is the 36 Melakarta raga.
So he
So this is
intentionally
just
skips the
pattern.
da and the ga
Yeah,
in certain places to
yeah,
avoid the
yeah.
discordance of the half step
But
note. Yeah.
even in the Chitta, he uses Rigamapada Nisa.
Hmm.
I
Yeah.
mean, that is the greatness of Dikshidhar. I mean, he shows how the Rigamapada Nisa sounds, and also, even if you, I mean, take out some notes, then how musical it sounds.
In fact, if
Yeah,
you take the Pallavi and before the Swaram of the same
yeah,
Kriti, he does not use the Devatam. In fact, the
correct.
Devatam exhibition is actually used in the Swaram what you sang.
Correct.
Only,
So
Exactly.
only.
So only in the Swaram he
he's very
uses.
selective. He has been very selective how to use it.
Correct. And even if you take, for example, Tyagaraja's Jagadanandakaraka, which is in the Ragam Nattai, there he rarely uses Daivatam. So that is how it is.
Good.
Yvette, did you have a question?
Yeah.
I think you mentioned a little bit before you had one. Go
So
ahead.
I think you're talking about this, and it's compounding my question, I think. And this may be a very ignorant question, but is there at any point can you completely leave a note out of a ragam and just
Oh, yes.
not use it at all?
Oh, yes.
Yes, of course.
All the
Completely.
all the
I
child ragas, and then many of the child ragas it will not have.
No. What she means is once you've defined Nattai, can I sing a whole composition in Nattai without ever hitting Da, for example? And will it still be considered a song in Nattai? That I think the answer is no. You have to hit it at some point. You have to show all the notes of the ragam at least once, maybe. I
Yeah,
don't know. I think if you never
yeah,
produce a note, then
Yeah, yeah.
you could argue it's not
Even
that ragam anymore.
it,
You know.
it could be a very rare, it could be very sparingly used. For example, an ideal example I would say would be a ragam like Sri Ragam. The Sri Ragam, which is the counterpart in the other school, is Karahara Priya. Now, when Karahara Priya goes, it is ma, pa, da, sa,
Oh,
sa, ni, da, pa, ma, ga, ri, sa. Now, the other school, it is sa, re, ma, pa, ni, sa, sa, ni, pa, da, ni, pa, ma, re, ga, ri. Now, what he does is here, he is using Sari Mapa Nisa, and in order to bring the Melakarta, all the seven notes, he is bringing that seven Padhani also, but the Padhani is used very sparingly. It is not used very often. It is used very sparingly, even in compositions.
yeah.
Okay, thank you. I appreciate that.
Yeah.
Any other questions? Can we maybe like take a little demo of Mahaganapatam from anyone who wants to sing it?
Oh.
Karthik can do it.
It's one of
Set
my
us free.
favorite it's one of my favorite songs, and what I want to do, the reason I want to put it up is there was a movie a while back called Morning Raga, which had a a little bit of
Yeah, yeah.
fusion, you know, because it was like a Western music band, and this lady who's a Carnatic music expert is like, "Hey, you guys don't know real music. Let me teach you." And then they jam together. It's a really cool movie to watch because it's actually made in English and made in I forget, Hindi probably. But there are some one of our famous Carnatic music singers performs on her behalf, because most of our singers don't, or most of our actors don't sing for themselves, right? So they're lip syncing and someone's singing at the back end for them. So one of our famous Carnatic music singers sings it, and it's a really cool fusion. And I really like that fusion because that's the first time she's like, "Boys, you don't know what you're doing. I can sing better than you." But I will share that on the forums separately. But if someone demonstrates the actual song, then I think it'll be like, you know, more meaningful, because that video doesn't go through the full song. It only does the pallavi, or the first paragraph or stanza of the song.
You're talking about the movie Shankarabharanam.
No, I'm
No,
talking about the
no.
movie Morning Raga.
Morning Raga, Morning Raga.
Oh, morning Raga. Okay,
Yeah,
okay,
yeah,
okay.
yeah,
In the
yeah.
movie
So
Shankarabharanam, there is a kind of a scene like that.
yeah, so Karthik Mama or anyone who wants to, I won't give it a shot because I have not practiced. I will be very bad at it.
Okay, I mean, puppy butter, yeah.
Oh yeah, Shida Mama, you want to sing it?
We can sing together.
Oh, together
No,
will be
it's
hard. It'll go, it'll
definitely.
also not sync. Shida Mama, you're on mute. Oh, there you are. Okay, you unmuted yourself. Good.
You're able to hear me?
Yeah.
Okay.
Oh,
Maga Ganapadim Maga Ganapadim Manasa Smarami Maga Ganapadim Manasa Smarami Maga Ganapadim Manasa Smara Vivashishtavamadevadivinudam Maga Gandapadimu Manasa Smara Vivashishtavamadevadivinudam Maga Gandapadimu Manasa Mahadevasutam Guru Gugahitam Mahadevasutam Guru Gugahitam Mahadevasutam Guru Gugahitam Mahadevasutam Guru Gugahitam Marakodi Prakasham Shantam Marakodi Prakasham Shantam Kavyanatakadi Priyam Mahakavyanatakadi Mushigavagana Modagapriyam Mahakavyanatakadi Mushigavagana Modagapriyam Nisada Nisabada Nisarigama Rigama Pamagama Nisada Nisapada Nisarigama Rigama Pamagama Amari Sarigama Paranida Nidari Nidada Sarigama Ridani Sani Bani Baba Magama Rizani Sadani Sapadani Sarigama Rigama Pamagama Pamari Sarigama Paranida Nidari Nidada Nidarigama Riza Tani Bani Baba Magama Riza Magadavadium Manasa Smara Vivashishtavamadevadivinudau Maga Gandapadum Manasa Smarami
hold on. There. Very nice job. It was fantastic.